Avast ye mateys! Welcome all you landlubbers! We're looking for a new crew of sailors to man our ship, the Amazing Grace, to head out for a high seas adventure.
You might want to introduce us first before you set sail.
Excuse my lack of manners. You're so right. I'm Davy the Navigator, and this is Tom the Quartermaster. Along with Captain Phillips, Buccaneer Bob the Bear, and the rest of the mates, we'll be here this week to train you on sailing a ship and guiding you on a journey across the sea.
Now that the introductions are finished, let's get to finding us a new crew. Do you think we'll find any among this group of ragamuffins?
Now, Tom, I'm sure that with a little bit of work and direction, we'll be able to whip them into shape and make them into a fine crew.
I do like the sound that a good whip makes. That is always a good navigator.
Now, Tom, don't go scaring them before we sign them up. I think now would be a good time for them to meet the captain, Buccaneer Bob, and the shipmates, and get things started. Well, Tom, it looks like we got them all signed up and ready to become a new crew of the Amazing Grace.
Well, before they get on board, they need to know who is the boss.
That's true. Of course, the captain is the top dog in charge, and then, of course, you, Tom, are the next in command. Now, what does the quartermaster do again?
I'm in charge of the ship when the captain's not around. And I'm also in charge of disciplining the crew when they don't take orders or any other mischief.
That is true. You all need to listen to what the captain and Tom tells you, because you don't want to get on Tom's bad list.
Hey, you got that right. And that brings us to the next in command, the navigator. Why don't you tell him what your job is, Davy?
Aye, aye. As a navigator, I keep the ship on course, reading the maps, following the stars, and steering the ship where we go.
You can't forget Bob the Bear, who is our first mate. He helps with all the jobs on the ship.
Yes, and all the mates on the ship are in charge of different jobs and help to train the sailors.
So, if you do what you're told, follow orders, and show your worth, you can all become shipmates.
You know, Tom, a ship and its crew is a lot like the Catholic Church.
Really? How so?
Well, the Pope is like the captain, the bishops are like the quartermasters, the priests are like the navigators, and the mates are the lay people.
Yeah, when we all work together, we get to where we're going. For us on the ship, we get to the next port. And for the church, we all get to heaven. This might be a good time for Captain Phillips and the mates to begin the crew's training, teaching them about the ship and its crew.
Well, Tom, it looks like we got them all signed up and ready to become the new crew of the Amazing Grace.
Well, before they get on board, they need to learn who's the boss.
That's true. Of course, the captain is the top dog in charge, and then, of course, you, Tom, are the next in command. What does the quartermaster do again?
I am in charge of the ship when the captain's not around. And I'm also in charge of disciplining the crew when they don't take orders or any other mischief.
That's true. You all need to listen to the captain and to Tom, because you don't want to get on Tom's bad list.
You got that right. And that brings us to the next in command, the navigator. Why don't you tell him what your job is, Davy?
Aye, aye. As the navigator, I keep the ship on course, reading the maps and following the stars, and steering the ship wherever we are going.
Well, we can't forget about Bob the Bear, who is our first mate. He helps with all the jobs on the ship.
Yes, all the mates on the ship are in charge of different jobs and help to train the sailors.
So, told, follow orders, and show us your worth, you can all become shipmates.
You know, Tom, the ship and its crew is a lot like the Catholic Church.
Really? How so?
Well, the Pope is like the captain, the bishops are like the quartermaster, the priests are like the navigators, and the mates are the lay people.
Yep, when we all work together, we get to where we're going. For us on the ship, we get to our next port. And for the church, we all get to heaven. This might be a good time for Captain Phillips and the mates to begin the crew training, teaching them about the ship and its crew.
Well, Tom, what do you think? Will Captain Phillips be able to turn this motley crew into a bunch of sailors?
I've seen better, but they have potential.
Coming from you, Tom, that's practically a compliment. And they have just begun, so they still have a lot to learn.
You can say that again. In fact, they're not the only ones who could learn a thing or two.
Tom, why do I get the feeling that you're talking about me now?
You're the ship's navigator. You're responsible for steering the ship and keeping us on course. But half the time, you don't seem to know the port side from the starboard side of the ship.
It's not that I don't know which is which. I just get a little confused. Can't we just say the right and the left side?
So you think it would be easier to say left and right instead of port and starboard?
Right.
Or left?
No, I mean, yes, you're right.
My right is your left.
Okay. Now I'm confused. Let's stick with the port side for the left and the starboard for the right. You know, Tom, there was a captain of a ship that didn't even have a steering wheel, but they still got to where they were going.
Really? And where did you hear that tall tale?
No, it's really true. It's in the Bible. It's the story of Noah's Ark. Maybe it would be a good time for Captain Philip to tell the story to the new crew.
Well, shiver me timbers, that was a good story. It really shows that God can guide us, even when you do not know where we're going.
Well, that makes my job a lot easier. I don't have to know where we're going, and I'll just let God do it.
If you think I'm going to let you get away with that, I could always demote you from being the navigator back down to the deckhand, and I'll even get you a bucket and water so you can start scrubbing the deck.
No, Quartermaster Tom. I was just kidding. I like my job as a navigator just fine. As we said earlier, being a navigator, it's kind of like being a priest. I get to use my map and my compass, like the priest uses the Bible and the church's teachings to show where God wants us to go.
Now you're talking with some sense. As I said before, a ship is like the church, and God wants us working together. We all have a job to do, and your job is to get that up in that crow's nest and guide this ship.
All right, Tom. Methinks that there's a lesson in this. Captain Phillips and his mates might want to show them how to navigate and trust each other. They will get them shipshape in no time. Yo ho ho! This group of landlubbers is starting to look like a real ship's crew.
Aye, they do look like they have some problems, but I'm not sure if I would head out to sea with them just yet.
Aye, they're still a little rough around the edges, but I know what will smooth them out quickly.
And what might that be?
All they need is a good sea chanty and a jig to get them moving in step.
Aye, a sea chanty and a jig. So a song and a dance, is that what you're suggesting?
Aye, nothing like kicking up your heels and good old tune.
I'm a-thinking we might need to let Captain Phillips and his mates Teach these lads and lasses to dance, as you look like a seasick sea dog when you get to moving around. Avast, all hands on deck. Enough with the jigs and reels. We do have a ship to run.
Oh, Tom, you sure can be a party pooper. But you're right, we'll never get the ship on the high seas if we're just dancing around.
I have told you more than once, Davy, I run a tight ship. And all these landlubbers will only be on my crew if they're well disciplined. They've shown some promise, but I'm not going to let up just yet until they become the best crew on the sea.
Aye, aye. You have about as much slack as a down anchor.
If you keep that up, I might send you down with the anchor to J.B. Jones's locker.
Oh, Tom, I'm just pulling your whiskers. Okay, all you scallywags, you need to come back tomorrow, and if you pass muster with the quartermaster Tom and Captain Phillips, we can get our ship, the Amazing Grace, out to sea.
Captain Phillips might want to do a review with them before he sends them home.